Today on Know the Truth, Philip de Courcy continues a series about heaven.
Work has always been part of God's plan. It was part of God's plan in Eden. If you study the book of Genesis, you see the creation of man made in the image of a working God. Adam was not given a hammock and a pillow. He was given a shovel and a rake. And he was put in the garden, Genesis 2:15, to tend it.
Welcome to Know the Truth with Philip de Courcy. Some people say they don't want to go to heaven because they think it'll be boring. But the Bible clearly challenges that false assumption, and Pastor Philip opens to Revelation 22 to explain how heaven will exceed all of our hopes and dreams. In heaven, we'll come face to face with the beauty and glory of God while exploring new wondrous worlds. You'll find this lesson online at ktt.org. Here's Philip with part 2 of his message called Plenty to Do.
Let's take our Bibles and turn to Revelation 22, verses 1 to 5. We're in a series on heaven, life after life. And we started to look at the subject, plenty to do. What will we do in heaven? And we've got all kinds of misconceptions about that. And I've been trying to deconstruct those. And so we're going to pick this up. And then, God willing, we're going to look at Revelation 21, verses 1 to 5. A message I've called Good Riddance, because there are many no mores in Revelation 21 and 22. No more sun, no more temple, no more death, no more crying, no more sorrow. How interesting a study. Sometimes we tend to focus on what's going to be in heaven, but heaven's going to be heaven partly because of what's not going to be in heaven. So I'm whetting your appetite for next Sunday morning. Revelation 22, verses 1 to 5. And he showed me a pure river of water of life, clear as crystal, proceeding from the throne of God and of the Lamb. In the midst of its street and on either side of the river was the tree of life, which bore 12 fruits, each yielding its fruit every month. The leaves of the tree were for the healing of the nations. And there shall be no more curse, but the throne of God and the Lamb shall be in it, and his servants shall serve him. They shall see his face, and his name shall be on their foreheads. There shall be no night there, no need of a lamp, nor light of sun, for the Lord God gives them light, and they shall reign forever and ever. Talking about caricatures of heaven, I was interested to read something from a columnist from the Los Angeles Times, a man by the name of Joel Stein. Here's what he said. Heaven is totally overrated. It seems boring. Clouds, listening to people play the harp. It should be somewhere you want to go, like a luxury hotel. Maybe blue skies and soft music were enough to keep people in line in the 17th century, but heaven has to step it up a bit. They're basically getting by because they're just a little bit better than hell. Now, if this writer knew his Bible, but come on, he's an LA Times columnist. He's not likely to know his Bible or have one. But if this guy knew his Bible, he would know that that's a misrepresentation, that's a mischaracterization of heaven. Read your Bible. Heaven is never presented as ethereal, sterile, repetitive, boring, and out-of-the-body experience. No. Heaven is thrilling. It's material. It's not to be missed. It's an ever-expanding experience of God, ourselves, and it's an access of life. We started to answer the question, what will we do in heaven? Well, there's plenty to do in heaven. More than just sitting around, polishing our halos, playing the harp, and wishing we had brought a magazine. That's not what heaven's going to be like. And we started to look at this life marked by stopping, Revelation 14:13, they will rest from their labors. We looked at life marked by solving, 1 Corinthians 13:8-13, where our partial knowledge will give way to full knowledge and we'll be able to look back and understand what God was doing in the stuff that we couldn't understand. It's a life marked by studying. In Ephesians 2, verses 6-7, we learn that God will reveal to us the riches of His grace throughout the ages. We'll come to understand God better. We'll come to understand life. We'll come to see the depth and breadth of God's love for us in the gospel. But here's another thing. It will be life marked by serving. Here we're picking up where we left off. Stopping, solving, studying. But what about serving? Look at our text, Revelation 22, verse 3. Revelation 21:22 has us in the new heaven and the new earth. It's Eden, revisited and restored. And in the midst of that, here's what we read. And there shall be no more curse, okay? The book of Revelation is a book about what we lost in Genesis, we regain in Revelation. No more curse. But the throne of God and of the Lamb shall be in it. Did you notice? And His servants shall serve Him. That's what we'll be doing in heaven. When we're sitting on clouds, playing harps, polishing our halo, we'll be serving. We'll be busy bees. Heaven's not some celestial version of the Village's retirement community in Florida. Okay? No. Heaven will be a new earth. It will be Eden restored and revisited. If you look at the book of Revelation, John calls himself God's servant in chapter 1, verse 1. He calls us priests and kings in chapter 1, verse 6. We're called servants in chapter 2, verse 19. In chapter 7, verse 15, we're told that the throne of God, His people will serve Him night and day. And here in Revelation 22, verse 3, we're told we'll serve Him. I think you've got the message. Work has always been part of God's plan. It was part of God's plan in Eden. If you study the book of Genesis, you see the creation of man made in the image of a working God. Adam was not given a hammock and a pillow. He was given a shovel and a rake. And he was put in the garden, Genesis 2:15, to tend it, to work it. We know that God's calling upon man was to exercise dominion over all living creatures and to subdue the earth. Genesis 2:15, Genesis 1:28, and Genesis 2:19-20. Zwingli, the great Protestant reformer, said, "There's nothing in the universe so like God as the worker." So I want you to know that heaven will resound to the perpetual hum of industry. I like what Augustus Strong, the great theologian, said. He believes that on heaven's door you might have these words inscribed, "No admission except for business." Love that. Heaven's about doing God's business still. There's going to be no sinners in heaven and no slackers, just to put you on notice. Now, man's disobedience, man's fall, man's rebellion brought God's curse on the ground, brought thorns and thistles, and man will eke out a living with the sweat of his brow, right? Genesis 3:16-19. But all of that gets rolled back. We're now back in the garden with God. We're now back in pre-fall days, Eden restored, and we'll be working with a sense of fulfillment, and we'll be doing that which is suited to our gifts and calling, and even the work itself will be restful. It won't be frustrating. It won't be marked by competition or jealousy. It won't be marked by failure or something that's never accomplished, which is often our experience in the workplace today. No, heaven is not so much a place where no work is done. It's just a place where pain is removed. And I just want you to bear that in mind. So let's just develop that a little bit and move on. Here's a couple of thoughts to throw your way. When it comes to working in the life after life, we might apply and perfect prior skills. I think one of the big themes that comes through this series is that our body will be a renewed and perfected continuation of this body. We'll get to Revelation 21 and 22 in a final study where we'll see that this present earth will be the new earth perfected. We'll retain something of our personality and looks even when we're glorified. There's a lot of continuity. And it would seem to me that if God has gifted you, either naturally or spiritually, with certain gifts, abilities, I think you might carry them forward into the next life. There's an interesting verse, Revelation 14:13, that their works will follow them. There's a rendering of that could read, and their works will follow with them. Paul Enns makes that argument in our book of the month, Heaven Revealed, that our works, our abilities will follow. Mozart will compose music, perhaps in heaven. Okay, you get the point. So we'll apply and perfect prior skills. Remember, Ephesians 2:10 is an interesting verse. Prior to the world being made, God ordained us to do certain works. I would have to assume that's not just for this life, but the next life. What you're good at, you're going to get real good at in the life to come. Now, you might be thinking, Pastor, I've got certain skills, but for the sake of my family, I've fallen on my sword. I'm doing a job I don't like. I'm not sure we'll be doing jobs in the world to come we don't like. We'll be doing that which is restful, suitable, fulfilling. Secondly, we'll work and serve harmoniously alongside angels. Have you ever thought about that? Angels serve God night and day in heaven. They don't go away. Revelation 7:11, Revelation 19:10 shows you them serving God. They'll work alongside us. And then finally, we'll subdue the earth in constant creativity. Remember we said this last week again, people think heaven's up there, it's ethereal, it's kind of cloudy. No, heaven's down here when it's all said and done. We'll be in our physical body. God will have renewed the earth. We'll be Eden revisited, and God will give us stuff to do. We will build civilizations. We will develop the earth, because that was the mandate, wasn't it, to Adam? Exercise dominion, subdue the earth. Genesis 1:28. I think that will continue. In fact, I'm sure of it, and for this reason. A Reformed theologian, Hokema, says this: the cultural mandate because of sin was never fully carried out the way God intended. Let me ask you, do you think the world today under man's management is the way it ought to be? Well, of course not. Now, there are flashes, and there are episodes, and there are experiences that are good. But we have failed because of our sin and rebellion to live up to working alongside God in subduing the earth and developing the world in a way that glorifies God harmoniously and with righteousness. I think the new earth gives us the opportunity to actually fulfill what Adam failed to fulfill. So that's worth thinking about. Ted Kennedy, when he was first running for Senate, was in a debate with his political challenger who mocked him on television that he was a child of privilege. True. That he had never done a day's work in his life or a full-time job. True. The next morning, Ted Kennedy is on the political trail, and he loved to tell this story. And while he was visiting this factory, a factory worker speaking about the thing on television the night before said, you know what, Mr. Kennedy, is it true that you've never worked a day in your life? And he said, if it's true, I want to tell you something. You haven't missed anything. Now that's funny, but in another sense, it's not funny. Because to say that when you miss work, you haven't missed a thing is to miss something very big. Work is part of God's original plan. It doesn't come after the curse. It's not a consequence of sin. God made us to work and serve. And you know what? That was true in the unspoiled first creation, and it will be true in the restored and holy and righteous second creation. Let's move on. We will be supervising. Life after life will be marked by supervising. Go back to Revelation 22, verse 5. We read about his servants will serve him, verse 3, and we read in verse 5, they shall reign forever and ever. Heaven's citizens are not just servants, they're supervisors. They'll be blue collar and white collar, if you want to put it that way. We'll be serving kings. If you study the book of Revelation, reigning with Christ, exercising dominion alongside of Christ is one of those themes. Revelation 1 verse 6 describes us as kings and priests unto God. Revelation 2, 26 to 27 Jesus says to the church at Thyatira, you know what? He who overcomes and keeps my works until the end, to him I will give power over the nations. What a promise. You got the same promise to the church at Laodicea. Revelation 3:21, to him who overcomes I will grant to sit with me on my throne, as I also overcame and sat down on my Father's throne. Who are the overcomers? They are saints who persevere. They are faithful followers of Jesus Christ. And someday the overcomer will be over the world to come. What did Jesus say in Matthew 5:5? The meek will inherit the earth. What does it mean, meek? Sometimes we think meek, weak. No. The Greek there is a word that means under control. It was used of a horse that had been broken and bridled. So the text would be something like this: those who are under the control of God, those who are living a life under the lordship of Jesus Christ, those who have submitted to the authority and rule of his word, the meek, those who are under control, someday will be in control. How interesting. Here we have the promise of reigning with Christ. We're back to that creation mandate. Adam was to be a co-regent with God. He was to exercise God's rule through his submitting to God's rule and exercising a life that was a life of obedience and one that reflected God's glory. Satan tried to usurp that rule. Adam disobeyed and disrupted that rule. God's judgment has complicated that rule, but Jesus Christ will someday restore that rule through the gospel, and we will reign with him. What about Matthew 19:28, where Jesus said to his disciples, you know what? Someday you'll sit on thrones and rule the tribes of Israel. The 12 of you, the 12 tribes. What about Paul's words to Christians in Ephesus, 2 Timothy 2, verse 12? If you suffer for him, you will reign with him. You know the parables, right? Matthew 24:45 to 51, Luke 12:41 to 48, where Jesus likens himself to an owner that goes away, or a king that's traveling to another country, and he leaves his servants with certain responsibilities, certain stewardships. Then he comes back, he judges them, he tests them, and depending on their faithfulness, they get to rule, they get to have certain responsibilities within the kingdom. Now, I don't know how this is all going to work out, but it's clear in the new world there'll be nations. We just read, didn't we, in Revelation 22, that the tree of life will be for the healing of the nations. We read in Revelation 21, verses 24 to 27, that the nations will come up and worship before the Lamb. We read in Revelation 5:9 that the host of heaven will be made up of those out of every tribe and tongue and nation. I don't think nations go away in the world to come. I mean, at its essence, nationhood and nationalism is not a bad thing. It's not an evil thing to take pride in your nation, because each nation and each culture is an expression of God's creativity, and our world is better for the different nations that there are. Now, what we're looking for in the world to come is equity, peace among the nations. But when Jesus brings that, imagine that cities, nations, cultivating a world under God. And you know what? For faithful overcomers, there is a ruling with Christ, a reigning with Christ. In the world to come, the redeemed will be agents of Christ's lordship and love throughout the earth. Their actions and the glory of Christ will fill the earth as the waters fill the sea. By the way, that argues for good government. I don't understand Christians who aren't interested in politics or government. I mean, at one point, Adam was told to exercise rule, dominion, organize life in a way that glorifies God. Now, we know man's mismanaging it. We know that governments have to carry the sword because men are rebellious. But as I read this and the governance that's going to come through Jesus Christ, I aspire to good government even now. I'll tell you another thing. This stirs up godly ambition in me. Because if you read the parable of the talents, if you read those stories in Jesus' life, the more faithful you are, the more you'll be given to do, the more rule you'll have, the more authority you'll exercise. Now, that's not a power trip. It's a desire for godly ambition to be something for God in this life and be something even more for God in the next. Be ambitious. Don't have some kind of flat org chart on your Christian faith. And I tell you another thing, what a comfort to the persecuted saints of God who don't live under our government. It's a joke. It offends me to hear people in Washington talk about our tyrannical president. We know nothing about tyranny. We know nothing about the tyranny of communism, socialism, theocratic, maniacal governments across the world, where our brothers and sisters are butchered. They're like chickens in hen houses in North Korea. And there's coming a day, and this has got to be a comfort to them, when the diabolical rule of diabolical man's over, and we'll rule with Christ. Those same saints will rule North Korea someday. Africa, Asia. What a thought. Talking about presidential politics. It's 2020. You know right now, for those who are seeking office, they've got themselves a campaign team. And they've got staffers, and they've got people working on polling and getting people out. They've got people pounding the pavements all over our country. And you know what you find? The candidate that wins, those who are in the campaigning council, those who are part of the campaign, will someday be part of the government. A lot of those people get jobs in the government. And that's our analogy. The church is in campaigning mode right now. We're campaigning for Jesus Christ. We're preaching the gospel. We're proclaiming the gospel. We're pounding the pavements of our communities and speaking about Him. And someday we'll move from campaigning to governing. You want to be part of the governing? You better be campaigning. All right. You're all looking at me. I better move on. We will be socializing. We will be socializing. What a wonderful thought. Go to Hebrews 12. Hebrews 12, 22. Listen to what we read about heaven. It's a description of the life to come. But you have come to Mount Zion and to the city of the living God, the heavenly Jerusalem, to an innumerable, notice the word, company of angels, to the general assembly of the church of the firstborn who are registered in heaven, to God, the judge of all, to the spirits of just men made perfect. We'll do a lot of socializing in heaven. Be a lot of fellowship, developing of friendships, keeping old ones going and making new ones. The life to come, the heavenly, is described as being in glorious company.
You're listening to Philip de Courcy on Know the Truth, and today's message is titled Plenty to Do, Part 2. To replay it, visit ktt.org. At Know the Truth, we take God's Word seriously because the truth has eternal consequences, and like you, we want more people to know Jesus Christ and live with Him forever in heaven. You can help us get the word out by becoming a Truth Ambassador, a monthly supporter who helps provide a firm foundation for this listener-supported ministry. When you sign up as a Truth Ambassador, you'll receive a special welcome package including some of Pastor Philip's recent books, the quarterly Accord newsletter from Pastor Philip, and a custom Know the Truth branded hat. You'll also receive our monthly resource, and this month it's The Story of God and Us by Jonathan Murphy. This powerful book reveals how your story fits into God's grand narrative from Genesis to Revelation. To become a Truth Ambassador or to make a one-time donation and request this resource, call 888-644-8811 or visit ktt.org. I'm Wayne Shepherd. Come back tomorrow when Philip de Courcy continues explaining what we'll do in heaven with this message, Plenty to Do. That's Tuesday on Know the Truth. Today's program was produced and sponsored by Know the Truth Incorporated. Jesus said, "You shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free."